So a professor asks you a question in your thesis defense, but suddenly your mind just goes blank. Your brain feels completely empty. You have no idea what to do or say while the examiners stare at you. This is a scary moment, and what often makes it worse, it's not just that initial blank itself, but the panic that follows. Well, here's the good news. A blank moment is indeed awkward, but it is recoverable. In this video, I will share with you 6 practical recovery strategies if your mind suddenly goes blank in your thesis defense. First, don't panic about the blank. This is the first point because it is the first thing we need to do. When your mind goes blank, that is a problem in and of itself, but very often what happens right after is even more crucial. In a high-pressure situation, sometimes my mind can also suddenly go blank, as it did on a couple of occasions, and that realization can sometimes become a full panic, a complete disaster, a thorough collapse. We don't want that. This initial blank is certainly not good, but it is also not fatal. It is recoverable. And examiners also understand that something like this can happen. So the first and probably the most important thing I need to do when I realize my mind is going blank is simply remain calm. Slow down, take a breath, calm yourself so that you don't let that initial blank spiral into a full panic. Just remind yourself, yes, a blank moment is awkward, but it can happen, no big deal. It's not fatal. Now that it has already happened, let's just focus on recovery. Second, acknowledge the blank and reset. When a blank moment occurs, sometimes it is better to acknowledge it rather than pretending everything is fine. Because pretending and acting takes mental resources which we may not have at that moment. Sometimes it is actually helpful to acknowledge the blank in a calm and brief manner. Simply say something like this. I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank here. Let me just take a moment, please. Saying something like this can be very effective because once we acknowledge the blank, the pressure already drops because we no longer have to pretend as if everything's fine because everybody in the room now knows what's happening. Everybody's on the same page, and that takes the pressure off. It is even likely, or at least possible, that a helpful examiner on the panel might even say something understanding and supportive to help you out a little bit. So calmly acknowledge the blank, do it in a way that's brief and not dramatizing, reset the moment, and move on. Number 3, ask for clarification. Sometimes your mind goes blank because the question itself was confusing. That's why you have no idea what to say. That's why you lose focus and blank out. In that case, one of the smartest things you could do is simply ask for clarification. You could say something like this. I'm sorry, I didn't fully understand your question. Please could you restate your question? Asking for clarification is not weakness. I understand sometimes people might be afraid to do this, myself included, but the truth is answering or trying to answer a question that I didn't even understand is often much more dangerous than asking for clarification. So, if the question itself is part of the problem for the blank, ask for the question to be restated. Ask for clarification. Do it briefly and respectfully. That could help. Number 4, ask for the question to be anchored to your written work. Just like the previous point, sometimes the reason you are losing your footing and blanking out is because the question is too abstract. When the question is so conceptual and broad and vague, and especially if it drags on for a while, your mind just floats away and blanks out. A smart move here is to ask the examiner to anchor the question to your thesis. You could say something like this. Could you please indicate which part of the thesis you're referring to? Are you asking about the section where I discussed my sampling method on page 24? This can be very helpful because once the question is redirected to something tangible which you wrote, you are no longer floating in a vacuum. By looking at your own thesis, assuming you actually wrote it instead of a Gen AI tool, you will regain orientation because the thesis is something you created. It's familiar to you, and that makes a big difference. Number 5, focus on what you do know and see if you can build from there. When your mind goes blank, that's of course an undesirable situation, so no need to try to force a perfect, complete, and clever answer at that moment. A much better and more realistic strategy is to focus on what you do know and see if you can build something from there. This could be answering the part of the question that you did understand or returning to the core message of your research. You could say something like this. If I connect this issue back to my original research question, if I go back to the main objective of my research, I would say this or that. This helps us recover from the blank out because it gives you something solid to stand on. We begin with one clear and defensible point and then build the rest from there. Number 6, recover and move on. Focus on what comes next. Let's say you froze and blanked out for a moment, and the answer, which did come out, was not that great. Okay, fine. That has happened, and that moment had passed. There is no point dwelling on that moment any longer. It is not going to help keep thinking about what I should have said differently. Maybe we could reflect on that after the defense, but while the defense is still going on and there are new questions still coming in, focus on these new questions because they are the opportunity that we still have to showcase our research. Examiners usually do not judge you based on one awkward moment or one weak answer in isolation. They look at your overall performance throughout the defense, your reasoning, your composure, and how you recover from a weak answer. That's why it's so important to move on and focus on what's next. So, to sum up, don't panic about the blank. Don't let that one blank moment spiral into something worse. Acknowledge the blank and reset. Sometimes the smartest thing to do is to acknowledge what is happening and be honest. Ask for clarification that might guide us out of the mist. Ask to anchor the question to the written work that makes things much more concrete. Focus on what you do know and build from there. One relevant point, one clear idea. Sometimes that's all we need to build an answer. And finally, when that moment is gone, forget about it. Focus on what's next. Which of these 6 strategies resonates the most with you? If your mind ever went blank in a thesis defense, a presentation, or another high-pressure situation, what would be your instinctive reaction? And do you have your own recovery trick or strategy that I did not cover in this video? As always, I invite you to leave your thoughts and comments down below. Please also check out my other videos on thesis defense and academic evaluation. I am sure you will find them interesting and useful. Thanks for watching this Ranywayz random video. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.